Welcome to MS4 Compliance Unlocked. This is the first of a series of 3 spring webinars that we're doing, and this one is entitled Practical Strategies to Streamline Industrial and Commercial Stormwater Compliance. My name is Nicole Beck. I'm the CEO and founder of Second Nature. I have a PhD in aquatic chemistry and really a data scientist at heart. I've been in stormwater now for, over 20 years. Today I'm joined by Catherine Rihamaki. She is our research director here at Second Nature. She leads a large amount of our applied research efforts, as well as being on the front line of implementation for our new software users. And our special guest, we're joined by Brittany Perkins. She's an environmental specialist at the City of Oceanside. They've done amazing things with their program and the digital transformation, so we're going to have an opportunity to hear from her about her lessons learned and journey. For those of you who don't know Second Nature, we're wholly committed to stormwater and science and technology. We're a team of scientists like myself and Catherine, GIS experts and software developers. We believe in open science and have been publishing in peer-reviewed journal articles on applied and practical science for over the last decade. And then we take those methods and embed them into our software solutions and our unique data sets. We're big believers in geospatial intelligence and GIS, and we're Esri's go-to stormwater solution partner. And we'll be talking, or at least showing some examples from our product. We call it To Inform. We built this software solution to provide stormwater managers, like a lot of you on the webinar today, with a platform to improve every aspect of your MS4 program. We know these programs collect an inordinate amount of data, and that data organized in a geospatial framework makes that data way more operable to not just streamline compliance, but optimize where to allocate resources, even contribute to watershed planning strategies. And it all aligns with our mission of really trying to help cities, communities, universities turn runoff and rain into a resource. So we have a poll that I'm going to launch here. And if I think you're in the right place, right? You want to hear more about general recommendations on how to improve your stormwater compliance program. So you're in the right place, and look forward to more. Stop sharing. I'm going to do some of the introductions, and then I'll bring my co-presenters on. But industrial and commercial stormwater requirements, right? They're one of the minimum control measures. They're prevalent in every MS4 program permit across the country. And it's one of the 3 that are in those minimum control measures that require the local agency to be essentially what I call a de facto regulator, right? To now enforce those state regulations that come from the EPA down to private landowners, or in this instance, business operators. In addition, with that, right, there are dozens of different types of facilities that fall under these requirements, right? And so we see, say a municipality on the size of 100,000 in population, they have, 900, 1,000, 1,200 open regulated facilities that they have to keep track of at one time. And you have to each write the inspection requirements and the stormwater pollution plans, very different from like a commercial food facility as it is to, say, a fuel and convenience shop. So a lot to keep track of there, and a large, hundreds of inspections per year. The program agencies, right, you're required to keep really accurate records and communications to demonstrate that you are doing your part to comply with those requirements that your agency is. And that these regulations continue to evolve, whether it's getting more stringent in industrial and commercial programs, as we're seeing in the West Coast in California, or even, every permit, they sneak in some new evolving regulations. So that can become really challenging to keep track of. And those challenges then fall on the stormwater teams, right? There's a lot of challenges, but I think the top four, obviously, one, resources are always limited. I talk to stormwater teams across the country weekly. I've yet to meet ones that have unlimited resources. So you're always being asked to do more with less. With those compliance requirements and the hundreds or thousands of inspections that need to be done, planning those weekly or monthly priorities or even the annual priorities on how you're going to hit which facilities at which time, that super challenging, right? And then honestly, the state of the workflows and the disparate data systems, right? Stormwater programs have kind of grown up iteratively and not necessarily with a holistic approach. So it is very common that groups are still using spreadsheets. They have different workflows and systems for, say, their industrial and commercial program than they may for their municipal maintenance program. And so that creates inefficiencies and burden. And I love the picture of this gal who just wants to kick that pile of paper across the room. So you're not alone if you're still using paper inspection forms and clipboards. And then, right, the communication summaries, annual reporting, audits, all super time consuming. And so these become common challenges that we are seeing in programs across the country. So it's time for poll number 2. Fairly even split. Obviously, managing the data is a big challenge. I'd love to know if you're one of the 5 folks who put in other, that would be something we'd love to talk about at the end. So if you wouldn't mind, if you get a chance, put that into the Q&A. Not really a question, but love to learn what some of those other challenges are. Okay, so our objective today is to share strategies that we found to overcome these common challenges with the industrial and commercial compliance requirements in particular. In Second Nature's honest opinion, it starts with realizing and aligning your teams around the data and information, right? Stormwater is a team sport, and we wholeheartedly believe that digital technology based in GIS can really get all of your teams united, get them access to the information that they need, and all get everybody rowing in the same direction. Okay, so we mentioned we were going to talk about strategies, so I'm going to give 5 strategies. These are going to come up throughout the rest of our conversation. And again, technology, efficient workflows, right? Do more with less. Everybody's being asked to do more with less. So these are the top 5 for today. The first is just maintaining an up-to-date facility inventory and doing that in a geospatial framework. There's lots of benefits in having that information in a geospatial framework. The geography and the location and type of facilities will play into your frequency of inspections and your priorities. And it's also a really eloquent way to organize information to make it more efficient, to know what you have, where you have it, and how to prioritize efforts. The second are your inspectors, right? If they're doing hundreds of inspections per year, getting them to be as efficient as possible when they're in the field, using mobile applications and digital technology, and making sure they have the right forms for the job, and that they also have the history of that facility. They have at their disposal the sweep for that facility. They have the history of the inspections. They have any other information, contact information, etc. We want to set those folks up for success and eliminate some of the drudgery that they inherently have in their jobs. One of the most common is after, right, photos are kind of the gospel in a lot of compliance programs, particularly industrial and commercial. Eliminate that time that's required to have to come back to the office and file those photos and align them with the inspection. So we'll show a bunch of strategies on how to make that more efficient and more accurate. The third is streamlining that communication, right? If you go to a facility and it's what we call the happy path, they're totally, all buttoned up, their pollution prevention controls are all in good shape, you're great, right? You have an inspection, you hand them the report, everything's great, and you walk away. If it isn't, there's right a series of communications that need to go on to get those findings remedied. And we have one strategy that we found has been really beneficial in saving hundreds of hours in automatically generating communications and then allowing the business owners to come right in as easy as a parking ticket and demonstrate that they have resolved the issues that your inspector found on site. The fourth is just managing that compliance calendar, right? I mean, this is one program of 7, 8 different programs under your purview if you're the head NPDS permit coordinator. So keeping track of all of those to-do tasks and that resource planning, and we'll show some of those benefits and ways that you can have a logic-based system set up so that you never lose track of what your priorities are. And then the last one, what really motivates and gets second nature excited about things is improved data management. Operable data. It's queryable, it's analyzable, and now we can get insights back. Some of those you have to, automatically generate for your annual report, but there's way more insights that can be gleaned by well-organized facility data and information. And we'll show you some of these examples on how you can identify where there are areas or opportunities for improvement, target efforts, and then be able to evaluate the improvements over time. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleagues to come back up here and join me. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Catherine and Brittany. Super excited to hear more about Brittany's program. Go ahead and take it away, you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Great to be here. Great to have all of you guys joining, and Brittany, especially great to have you here. You are joining us with your, firsthand knowledge of how to, deal with the stressors of an industrial and commercial program. You are, as the slide just said, from Oceanside, which is in beautiful San Diego County. Can you talk to us a little bit about your industrial program, the scope of it, and what your challenges are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about the City of Oceanside's industrial commercial program. Yeah, and like you said, we are a city in San Diego County, and it's a coastal city, so a special focus on water quality, I think. And here at the City of Oceanside, we really like to focus on outreach and education when it comes to stormwater. And the industrial, commercial, municipal inspections are like a really great opportunity to do that. But we're also required to do them. So um, we try to balance those two things. But yeah, just to give you an idea of our inventory, we have 1,500 industrial, commercial, and municipal facilities that we have to inspect. And the way our MS4 permit works here is that we have to inspect 20% of our inventory every year. And then every facility also has to be inspected at least once every 5 years. And then just in addition to that, we also have to kind of prioritize facilities that have the potential to be a bigger polluters or a source of pollution. And so it's a lot of different factors to kind of try to evaluate and make sure that we're in compliance with this program. And so I think the biggest challenge for us was similar to what most cities were saying, is just managing all of that data. And what we were doing was a spreadsheet before we started using To Inform. And so we just had a spreadsheet with 1,500 rows of businesses.
You guys probably
And,
got really good at Excel.
that's true. But it wasn't super easy to use in the sense that, like when you're trying to figure out what businesses are due for an inspection and that kind of thing, you do have to just rely on people knowing how to use Excel well.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a challenge. And another challenge is not having those facilities mapped. So we didn't have them mapped. And so people would just, plan their day, go sit down, look at the spreadsheet, try to kind of assess where businesses were close together, and then go out and do those inspections. So that was definitely a challenge and time consuming. And then additionally, we still had to track all the inspections. So we were tracking our inspections in a database that was not tailored towards stormwater. It was really for code enforcement. And so we would go out and do the inspections, come back to the desktop, fill out a form in this database, and then it would produce an inspection form and no photos, unfortunately. So we'd have to like attach photos. And obviously that was also very time consuming, not being able to do everything in the field. And like Nicole said, yeah, photos were always difficult to upload onto the computer and put into like a Word doc and send out. So I think just time was a challenge for sure.
Did you guys have a breaking point where you were like, we cannot keep doing this? Or was it, a million paper cuts over the years where you were like, okay, now it's time? How did you guys motivate to change what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, the city just continues to grow, and we just have more and more businesses. So I think, just as the inventory continued to grow and, you know, technology advances, it just became obvious that there had to be something better out there, and the task wasn't getting any easier. Um, and I think that was kind of, you know, the point where we were like, maybe we should start looking into other options. Um, yeah.
So Nicole worked with you several weeks ago now to try to calculate like what was the time savings of changing from that old spreadsheet manual intensive process to something that was more automated. And the result was like nearly 600 hours, and to put that into financial terms, over $20,000 of savings just from this one part of your stormwater program. Did that surprise you, or was that pretty self-evident from your lived experience?
Um, I was definitely expecting a lot of time saving. I mean, I think we knew what we were doing was not the most efficient method. We just didn't have another method at the time. So yeah, I wasn't uh, surprised that we saved a lot of time with having everything in the software. But I think putting like a monetary value to it and like a cost savings to it um, put things into like a different perspective that I hadn't really um, expected. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we would love to stay and chat with you for longer. But I am curious if you, virtually looking out at some of your peers in the audience, have any advice that you would give based on your experiences.
Yeah. I think just like seeing that everyone is main challenge is just like managing the data. It is overwhelming. It is not, there's not like a really like easy, intuitive way to manage it. And I think the city of Oceanside, like taking time to find a different method and go through all of our data. And, it was work to have to like face our data and decide that we were going to have to move it into like a GIS base. Like what was that going to look like? I think it was like some initial art that will help us throughout the rest of the program's lifespan. So I think like the initial effort of just like looking at our data and trying to get it into a different software will be worth the cost savings, the time savings, and in the years to come. So I'm glad that we put in that initial effort. Yeah.
So, sounds like just do it. That's the advice. And that, there's an activation energy to that of getting over the hurdle of, change can be hard, but worth it in the big picture.
Yeah, I think so, personally.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to invite Nicole back, and we will see Brittany again at the end for Q&A. So thanks, Brittany, and we will
Perfect.
see you in a few moments. But please feel free for those in the audience to ask questions through the Q&A for any of the three of us, because Brittany will come back.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. All right. So Catherine, let's put some of these strategies into tangible context for everybody. So I'm going to just go through those 5 strategies and cue you up to provide some evidence of how to do each of these and see if we can turn on some light bulbs here with the audience.
Awesome. So I will share my screen.
All right. Well, she's getting started. So the first one is to maintain an up-to-date GIS inventory of facilities. So get a new phone call from the business department. There's a new facility that you evaluate and knows triggers the requirements. Can you show us that? And then also, as Brittany brought up, how do you use the information to prioritize the facilities based on various risk factors?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. And I'm going to just, as we do these little demos, I'm going to play a couple of different stormwater staff roles. And so the first one is like really similar to what Brittany was just talking about in her role of managing just the sheer volume of data and the information. So here I am in our stormwater system. We're looking at the map of my MS4, and as Nicole said, my workflow, a typical workflow, is that we found out that there's a new facility and I need to log that information. I can see already I have, dozens of facilities out here. They have different colors. I can expand the legend so that you can see that gives me a snapshot of what the condition is of those facilities, whether they have findings, whether they have enforcements, whether they're due for inspections. And I'm going to add one facility with all the associated data to this list. So the first thing I'm going to do is just enter in that address so that my map can zoom me to that site. And so this is where that circle is. That's the new facility that I'm going to add. You can see that it's in the context of a few other facilities that are nearby in varying different conditions. So I'm going to add that new facility. I'm going to click this Add New Facility button, and up pops a map that gives me that view of the landscape now with an aerial view, and I will drop my point right on that building where the address was. I can zoom out a little bit and get a little bit more of the environmental context. You can see that there's an estuary nearby. I know from my previous context that that estuary is environmentally sensitive. I also know that the urban catchment that this facility is in, right here, Watt 7, that is subject to TMDL regulations. So I'm going to fill in a little bit here, give it an ID. I'm going to give it a facility name. This is a lumber company, so I've indicated that. All the other stuff here was automatically populated just based on where I dropped my point. So I'm ready to move on to logging general information. And here's where I would put in some of that data about what type of facility it is, whether it has an SIC code, what the inspection frequency is, so that I can manage as my inspector teams go out, I can manage when they need to go out and do those inspections. But what I'm really interested in is to make sure that we are noting that it is in an environmentally sensitive location. So I can say it's adjacent to an environmentally sensitive area. It is producing 303D pollutants. Those include metals and sediment and toxic organics. And all of that combined makes me, based on our workflows, indicate that this is a high risk site, and we should be paying extra attention to that. Just to clean out to finish up the inventory, I'm going to add some contact info. And of course, if I were doing this fully, I would enter all of this information, but I'll enter a phone number just to give you that sense. And likewise, I can add files to this so that all of the information about my site, like a sitemap, is stored in this one location. And so I will add that file here. And this is now a repository for myself and for any of my colleagues to be able to see. And so there is that new point on the map. It has not had an inspection because it's new, and it's not due for an inspection yet because it just opened, but it will be due in about a year. Okay, so really quickly, without being a GIS professional, I've been able to map my site, manage all of its data, see its geographic context, and have all of that stored for me and for my team. The other task that I had was to close out a facility nearby that is no longer in business. And this is one other part of managing our data, is what happens to those sites once they're not active anymore. I don't want to lose all of the information that we've collected. So I'm going to change the phase here, or change the view so that we're looking at phase. And now you can see the white ones are the open facilities, but the black ones are closed. We still have that info. It's just that we don't see that on our normal workflow, but we still have the data. Here's the one that I'm going to close out, and it does have a whole history of inspections and follow-ups. So I don't want to lose that. Instead, what I'll do, instead of deleting this, is come into its inventory and just change it into a closed out business, indicate when it closed, and save it. And it was as simple as that. Now it is closed. So in really quick order, I've been able to kind of augment and modify this inventory with a lot of time savings with some of that automation.
Super. Thanks, Catherine. Okay, so pretty easy to maintain an up-to-date inventory of your facilities. So the next strategy was triggering efficient and accurate facility inspections. So can you show us how the stormwater teams and the inspectors can keep track of what facilities are due for inspections when, and then how those digital tools can ensure, right, they have the right forms in their hand and that they're effortlessly capturing findings and the respective photos to make sure their reporting is as accurate as possible.
Definitely. So, I'm going to wear a different proverbial hat now of the inspector. And when I log in the morning, my go-to place is this to-do list, where I can see the different types of tasks that I might have to do, starting with the routine inspections at the top. And we kind of think of this as a cascade of tasks where, if a routine inspection has no findings, that's great. But if it does have findings, it might trigger the need to do re-inspections or get maintenance responses, and in the worst cases, have some open enforcements. So in this case, I'm just going to open this up and see there are 12 sites that need inspections, listed from the ones that had the oldest due date until the present. So I'm going to do a quick inspection on this one at the top, Martinelli and Company. So I'll just click Site Visit. And what pops up is an inspection form that has info about the inspection itself and info about the facility. And I can use that facility info to figure out what type of inspection I'm going to do. All of this list that you see here are types of inspections that have pre-configured questions that are organized so that me as an inspector can be consistent in what I'm doing, organized in what I'm doing, and thorough. So I'm not missing anything when I'm out on site. So I will pick one of these, and that populated then a tab here of facility requirements that has all of the different inspection things that I might have to do while I'm on site. Of course, this would be on my mobile device, and I would take this with me around the site, and within each of these categories answer various questions. I'm not going to answer all of these now for the sake of time, but I will indicate some that are compliant, and I will do a few that are not compliant here, just so that you can see. And as Nicole indicated, we can note things within the form and add photos from my mobile device that embed the photos in the exact right place on the inspection. So no more for Brittany going back and having to take, photos that are somewhere else and embed them in their forms. This is happening as I'm going. Okay, so I've answered a couple of observations. Imagine that I have done absolutely all of these, and I am ready to do the submission. There is a quick assessment here of the number of compliant findings and the number of non-compliant findings. In this scenario, I have been on site with the property manager, and we have talked through that non-compliant finding of trash. Now, we have two paths that we could take at this point. I could go out and re-inspect the site. That would be a lot of time, both for me and for the property manager, disrupting their day. And for this case, it's a minor non-compliant. So instead, I'm going to do a maintenance notice, which allows me to trigger a notification to the property manager, a PDF that they can then address through a digital system, so they don't have to have me back on site, and they don't have to come down to City Hall to address it. So I will finish this out, and I will indicate that our property manager was on site. We talked. I will indicate the amount of time it took, and I will sign it and go ahead and save and submit my inspection. And as I said, what that does then is it triggers the creation of a PDF. For those of you eagle-eyed people, it took it off of my routine inspection list and it added it to awaiting maintenance responses. All of this has saved me, both for the inspection, a ton of time, and then as we'll get to that maintenance response as well, just easing some of that work burden.
Super. Okay. So number 3 then was that streamlining communication. So I think what you just did was you automatically generated an inspection report as well as a letter that you can now provide to that business owner or any business owner that they are going to go ahead and use a self-service collaboration portal in a browser and provide evidence that they have remedied the findings. So will you go ahead and show us that, Catherine?
Yeah, definitely. And Nicole, if you don't mind being a part in this role playing of being the property manager. So this is a report that I generated from an inspection that I did yesterday. And as Nicole said, I triggered a maintenance notice that was a PDF. It's just this cover sheet that has some information about the program, the site visit results. It attaches the inspection report itself that has info about the site, the inspection summary, and then the questions, again, with those photos embedded and the comments embedded within that inspection. But the real time savings here is that there is a link that Nicole, the property manager, can follow to respond to these 2 areas of non-compliance, so that she can demonstrate virtually that she is actually now in compliance based on this communication. So I'm going to switch to what Nicole would be seeing, which is this form.
Yeah, so I just took that letter and I scanned the QR code, and this is what'll pop up in any browser as a result of that. So now I have the digital form with I can download the report if I don't have that handy. And I am being asked, and these can be configured, but following instructions from the City of Clean Water as to what needs to be done. So I can go ahead and open up these non-compliant requirements, provide my response that I've actually remedied the issue, provide photographic evidence that I've remedied the issue. Me and Catherine, the stormwater inspector, now are on the same page as to what the expectations are. Do this at my leisure, provide my name and signature. And when I hit submit, it's off of my to-do list and I can go on my merry way as a business operator.
And you get a nice, cute little puppy image to reward you. So now for me, I just go back to my to-do list, and this is what I would see is I would be awaiting, or I would see the trigger for a maintenance response, and then I can review what Nicole sent in. I can accept it and say that she's in compliance for those, or I can say it's non-compliant and either trigger another letter or go on site for further investigation. But all of this helping with some of that back and forth of communicating expectations and then responses from the property manager.
Super. That seems like a lot of time savings to not have to go and re-inspect every facility. And we've also heard from users that it helps with the collaboration of the business owners to clarify expectations. Okay, so number 4, just keeping track of, we hope that facilities are on the happy path and they make the adjustments needed, but if there are still issues and we have bad actors that just can't seem to button up their facilities, can you just give one example of how to track those findings and flag and issue enforcements, keep track of all of that?
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of our last areas here on the to-do list, and I'm just going to go into one of these that's on our open enforcements list. This widgets industries, and I can see on this fact sheet some of the basic info about the site, but down here at the bottom, the history, which I can look at and see. It's concerning that there are inspections that are routinely getting Fs and Ds from them. And they have an open enforcement action. It was a warning letter. It's been about a month, so I'm going to go in and review that. And I have a couple of options here in this. First of all, I can see that it's at that warning level. I can also see what those open findings are. So that was automatically filled for me. I don't have to do some cross correlation with an inspection result. So at this point, I've talked with my colleagues. I can keep it open to just indicate that we've reviewed it and this is still the right level. I can escalate it, which is what we decided to do, or I can resolve it, which is what we hope will happen with this escalation. I can escalate it and give them an NOV. And within this, I can even store that letter so that we have that for our records. And any of my colleagues can come in here and they can see that history. So I will go ahead and save this. My hope is that what will happen with this NOV is that later I can come back in here and look at that NOV and resolve it, because this has been enough communication back to them to trigger the compliance.
Super. All right. So last piece, number 5, my personal favorite right now, we have operable data. We have a data information management system. It makes it, show us some of the insights that we can gain from the data, maybe give us one tangible example, and then obviously that pesky annual report, being able to summarize and report either to your peers or your management or that regulator. So
Yeah, thanks. And this is really kind of closing the loop on all of the workflow of, trying to get some insights for how my program is doing and what I need to report to our stakeholders. So, these are a bunch of widgets that we have where I can see what my program is doing through time in this top graph, how many inspections have we been doing. But I want to just highlight one of these in here, and it's the one next to it, which is a ranking of the places in those inspections, the questions where we have the most findings. So where is it that those local property managers are struggling? This is so important to us. Brittany was saying this for her program that, public education and outreach and trying to proactively help our property managers be in compliance, that is hugely beneficial to us. It's the non-compliant stuff that takes so much time. So if we can nip that in the bud early, that's helpful. In this case, I can see that, 2 years running, it's outdoor site drainage issues that these properties are having. And so this is something that I can use to trigger making a brochure or some other outreach to indicate what our expectations are and how they can be in compliance for this. My hope would be that in 2026, this will no longer be the top area where there are findings, and there will be fewer findings overall. So that's about managing the program and data rollups that help me with that. The other part, and some of you said this is a stressor for you. If it's not the top stressor, I'm sure it's up there, which is annual reporting. You can see up here at the top of the screen for this demo account of ours that there's a calendar, and this red triangle down here indicates the end of our reporting year. And this is where we are right now in mid-February. So what this is doing is giving me a written summary of my program, a little bit of boilerplate info about commercial and industrial programs generally, and then specifically embedding my data in here. And this is populating as the year rolls out so that, I have that info as I go, but at the end of the year, I also can do something as simple as, copying this text and pasting it into the reporting that I need for my regulator. I can also look back at previous years and see what has happened in those. If I scroll down, the other thing that is really helpful for me is to see which facilities have uncorrected findings and open enforcements, and being able to address those before the end of the year, because this is populating as I go, can make sure that by the end of the year, everything has been addressed and we're submitting a really clean report to that regulator and to all of our stakeholders. Again, kind of alleviating some of the major stressors that I have for my communication workflows.
All right. Thanks, Catherine. Nice little bow on it with annual reporting. I'm going to wrap us up here, do a quick screen share, bring back the presentation. And then we have some time for Q&A, and I've been seeing those come in, so excited to answer your questions. Okay, so just to put a nice little bow on this, right? What we're really looking to do or help programs do is, deliver tangible benefits, save time, reduce risk, overcome those inherent resource limitations. So I broke this into kind of 5 categories just to remind us of the value. The first is just efficiency and cost savings, right? We automate repetitive tasks, we reduce manual data entry, we're streamlining workflows. In the example of sending maintenance notices, you can reduce the unnecessary site visit time. That's a real cost savings. Then we also hear at a lot of these programs, right? There's institutional knowledge. People have built up these programs and the workflows over years. And, when they leave, it is really hard for the, the new staff to be able to get up to speed. So you reduce that reliance on institutional knowledge. You can train new staff, and they're spending time, on what matters more than drudgery is one of the words we like to say. The accuracy and data integrity, right? The multiple data entry and manual processes, there's error inherent in that, right? So you're standardizing your data collection and your reporting formats, and then that data is always accessible. And we've heard that a lot from stormwater managers, like, I don't have GIS. I don't know where all my facilities are. I always have to ask someone for the last inspection reports or whatever. So making that information and data accessible, really key. Then reducing compliance risk, right? By setting up the program and having a kind of method to the madness that is easy to articulate and keep track of, you're able to make sure that, right, your program is complying with the regulatory requirements, which are, pretty burdensome on everybody. And if you do get audited, either by the EPA or the state, you have that information readily available. You can even give them read-only access and share facility information or your program data with regulators as needed. And then last, and the one that we think is really just kind of underappreciated, and it's been so exciting to watch groups use, gain like operational visibility so that they can understand how their program is working, where their challenges are, and focus and implement changes and improvements. So all of this together, hope it's bringing great, hundreds of hours of time savings and getting folks to focus on what really matters. Last and final poll, and this will kick off the Q&A. I'd love Catherine and Brittany to come back, but where do you all see the greatest opportunity for improvement in your program? Catherine, I'm going to pass Q&A to you so you can start the conversation here and then direct us as needed.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think we have a handful of questions, some, I think, for the on-the-ground expertise of Brittany, some specific about the software, and some kind of more generally about technology. Brittany, maybe I can start with you and ask a couple questions. What has been the most effective strategies that you've used for engaging the facility owners in their stormwater compliance?
Yeah, I saw that question in the chat. That's a good one. I think it's helpful to not always be focusing on the enforcement. Like, yes, we have to do that, but how can we like bring it back to the bigger picture of why we're out here doing inspections? Like how are the corrections going to help water quality? Like always coming back to that. But I think having good education materials, good website, forms that are understandable that you're sending out to people, good photos, things like that, like all that kind of more of like a holistic approach, and like lots of different kinds of materials that you're giving to business owners helps them with coming into compliance and getting that education.
Awesome. And I went through this really quickly, but in those inspection forms, you can indicate that you gave materials to the land managers, and that can be helpful just for keeping track of some of that outreach. Nicole, for you, this is kind of a big vision thing. How do you see technology changing the way MS4 programs manage their industrial and commercial inspections over the next few years? And I might broaden that to say, managing stormwater.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brittany hit right on it, right? Is like getting to the why and educating people. Why are you doing this, right? Compliance and effort-based requirements are always, I mean, even my 10-year-old, if I tell her to do something and just because I said so, not always get the best outcome. So understanding that why I think is really important. So one of the things that, again, we're motivated in doing is that there is a bigger kind of why and intent behind the entire Clean Water Act. So even this, facility management and pollution prevention, it does have a community benefit. And so bringing that back to the landowners. I'd love to see the technology be able to even expand to the public, so that they have more information on the data in a way that helps them, again, understand that larger why of their context in the watershed, in the community. And I think that'll change behavior and motivate folks more than just giving them violations because something is not properly managed or maintained.
Awesome. And then we have a couple of questions here specifically about the software and, can it talk to other systems? Does it, can you export the data? What type of export is there? I don't think we want to get into too many details, but Nicole, maybe you can talk a little bit about the importance of being able to share your data and integrate with other systems and how we've thought about those issues.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, as I said at the beginning, right, we're big Esri partners. So our system is set up in a geospatial framework, and then we set up a shared data synchronization with the local, users. So I think even Oceanside has got their data being pushed back to the ArcGIS, either online or enterprise instance. So you have the data in both places. To Inform supports all of those compliance workflows, but there's so much information in stormwater that's useful to the rest of the city, like traffic or parks or anybody else, right? Where the infrastructure is, where the catch basins, where are those facilities, the drainages, et cetera. So the short answer is we start with making sure that data is fully synchronized in a single source of truth with your Esri environment. And then, yes, it can all be exported in a variety of different formats.
Awesome. And then I would just add to this that there are a couple of, configuration questions, and, we love hearing from municipal programs what your stressors are. Brittany and I had lots of conversations around, what their workflows are and what their needs are. And we do try to make sure that, you have everything that you need at your fingertips. So, some of the tracking there for risk level that came from discussions with Oceanside in particular.
Yeah. And we get asked that question a lot about configuration or customization. And I mean, we're working with hundreds of municipalities now across the country. So we have built a library of questions and forms and fields that, it's not that we don't see something new that often, but it's getting rarer and rarer. So there is a lot of similarities in programs across the country that I think, it was one of our reasons why we started this effort, and it is proving true. And everybody gets to learn like the best practices from each other, right? We create and improve the solution as a result of everybody's input and good feedback.
Yep. And I'll just add one thing in response to a question about the size of municipality organizations that we've interacted with. It's anywhere from one person to a host of, a dozen or more people. Every municipality is a little bit different in size and structure. I think there's time savings in there for organizations, whether you are small or really big. Slightly different stressors for each, but that automation that we've talked about today can really help in all of those contexts.
All right. I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you, everybody, for the great questions. And thanks, Brittany, for getting roped into this and participating. Fun to hear your perspective. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So like I said at the beginning, this is the first of a series of 3 webinars. You've registered for all of them by registering for this one. So the next one will be in mid-March, and that'll be focused on construction site runoff compliance. So our website is here. Please reach out if you have any additional questions. Love to hear from you. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.